Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we're checking out the Desview R7 7-inch monitor. It has a bunch of features packed in, so let's get started. So at the top of the monitor, we have the power button, 3 hotkeys, and a scroll wheel for the menu. And at the bottom, we have the USB slot and the 1/4 mount. And on the right side, we have the HDMI in and out and the DC outlet. And on the left side of the monitor, we have another 1/4 mount. On the back, we have the slot for the NPF Sony battery. Here's some of the accessories it comes with. So to turn the monitor on and off, you just hold down the power button for a few seconds. You gotta give it a few seconds to load up. It takes a little long, but it's not a deal breaker. If you tap the power button, it turns the touch screen off. If you tap it again, it'll turn it back on. At the top of the monitor, you have a jog wheel that's pressable. You also have an exit button, but the monitor is also touchscreen. Let's jump straight into the menu. We have the exposure assistant, we have the focus and composition, we have the LUT menu, the display settings, and the system settings. And we also have this cool little shortcut panel. Let's just jump straight into the exposure menu. So here we have the false colors. You can choose between spectrum and ARRI. Next we have zebras. You can go from 75 to 100. Alright, so next up is histogram. You can set it for brightness or RGB. You can change the position basically anywhere you want on the screen except the middle. Up next is the waveform. You can set it for luminance or RGB. Once again, you could change the positioning. So next up is vector scopes. They all have this transparency slider that I didn't mention for the other ones, but they all have them. You can change the positioning of this as well. And we have a log and HDR, but that's grayed out. Next up is the focus and composition menu. We'll start off with a single color. We have red, green, blue, and gray. So up next we have the peaking. You could change the strength of the color to weak, average, and strong. And once again, we have red, green, blue, and white. So next up is the center mark. So you can basically change the colors to red, green, blue, white, and black. So next up is the safety area. You can go from 80 to 95. And once again, change all the colors. Next up is the mark ratio. You can change the transparency of the line. You can go all the way from a 1:1 to a 2.4 ratio. And once again, you can change all the colors. Next up, we got grid lines. We can go from a 2x2 to a 8x8. Next up, we got the audio meter. We can switch that from left to right. Next up, we have the LUT menu, but we'll come back to that. Next, we'll head into the display settings. We have aspect ratios from 4:3 to 2.35, but I would just leave it on auto. Next up is the display flip. We can flip it horizontal and vertical. Alright, so next up is zooming. This is just to zoom in on the picture. This doesn't help you focus or anything like that. So I really don't know what you use it for. Next up is pixel to pixel. I'm going to be totally honest, I have no idea what this is for. Next up is the HV delay. So if you need to change anything in here, which I doubt, but if you need to, it's here. So we'll skip over the still frame. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next is the battery notifications. As you see, we could turn it on to display the battery of the screen. Next up is the 9 grid. I really don't know what this is for, but it's there. So here we have the system settings. The first menu, you can change the language of the screen and the duration. Not quite sure what that one's for. Next up is the color menu. So you can change the brightness, the contrast, the sharpness, and saturation. Next up, temperature. You can change the temperature of the screen. Backlight, you go from high to standard. You could customize it to low to high, whatever you like. The screen is 1100 nits, so it's pretty good for outside. Next up is the sound. You can turn it, you can leave it on or mute it, and it goes from 0 to 100. Next, this is how you set your hotkeys. You have 3. The exit button counts as 1 hotkey, and then you have your F1 and your F2. And you can set them to anything you want on this menu. Next up is the reset button, so you can default the screen back to factory. We have your update screen and your status screen. That'll show you all your settings. Let's jump back into the LUT menu. Here we go. We have the USB stick that it came with a bunch of preloaded LUTs. All you have to do is just double tap on a LUT and it will load it into the screen. I'm not sure how many LUTs you can load onto the screen, but I put at least 5 on there, so not quite sure, maybe a little bit more. You go into the LUT menu, you can see the LUTs that you loaded. You give it a tap, you have to wait a few seconds and they'll pop up. But having this LUT feature is pretty nice, especially if you're gonna shoot any short films. So my thoughts on the monitor is actually pretty great for all the features that you get for the price that it is. There's a few things I'd change. Like instead of a USB drive, you can put an SD card in, but that's just nitpicking because you could just buy a $5 little USB dongle from Amazon and use that. And I wish it was a little bit quicker on startup, but for the price, you can't really beat it. So I would definitely recommend this monitor to any of my friends. So I hope this helps you on your decision.